Beautiful reading. I think we had trumpets in early at 53. Is
Yes.
that right? Okay.
Yeah, that was, yeah. He was.
And then let me look through here. Flute and piccolo at 56. I just flute more than piccolo, I guess. I just put a really high note. If you just kind of want to play anything squeaky and high and weird, you can. It doesn't need to be that note. If you have something that sounds a little bit scarier. And then other than that, I think that was the main things. Cellos did a great job on the random like trims and stuff. That was awesome. The clusters and the violins was great. Yeah, let's just take it again, I think.
Thank you.
There is literally nothing like it. It is. I've had music of mine performed in arenas of thousands, and I've been in those rooms and like had people screaming, and like that is a really, really cool experience. But having an orchestra play music that I wrote will always, to me, it just remains like probably the peak of my experience as a musician on earth. I just love it so much. It's literally like intoxicating. It's so incredibly rewarding, and I absolutely love it. So if you're joining and you haven't watched videos 1 and 2, this is actually part 3 of a 3-video series on orchestration. In part 1, I went through and I cleaned up my MIDI mockup in Cubase to prepare it for notation. In part 2, I actually notated or wrote the sheet music that the musicians read in the session that you just saw. And then in this video, I just wanted to show you the result and then open up the session a little bit and talk about kind of how it helps elevate the score. I'll A/B a little bit between the mock-up orchestra and the real orchestra. I'll show you the final mix that my amazing engineers did. And yeah, this is just sort of like the reward for all the work that we did in the first 2 videos. So I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so here's the session, and basically I have everything as it was delivered to my mixers. And my sort of philosophy when it comes to preparing things for mix is I do a lot of pre-mixing, so things are definitely very, very close to how they end up. And my mixers, at my request, do not like dismantle my mixes and do something totally brand new with it. Typically, this stuff is approved by the director, producer, and I can't deliver a final mix that's like markedly different. So I just need, problems to be solved, things to be a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, and just better. So what you're going to hear right now is what I delivered to the mixers, and then we can actually A/B with their mix a little bit. But what I really thought would be cool was to walk through kind of how I took that recording that you just saw and put it into my session. As you can see here, I've muted quite a lot. Basically every single sample that I had that was strings, brass, or woodwinds. I think the only thing that I left unmuted is right here, just this growing horn thing. Just to give a little bit more to that that crescendo, but literally everything else is full orchestra. And then the stuff that I have that stayed samples was all my percussion, which is everything in green here, which isn't that much. And then some synth stuff, which is everything in yellow here, and I'll kind of show you how that is incorporated as well. But the first thing I want to look at is I want to look at these orchestra recording tracks. So everything here is in mono, and these are actually what I got from Budapest was a Pro Tools session. I went through and I did my comps in Pro Tools, exported those out, and then I just deal with everything in Cubase because I'm way faster in Cubase and it's just a lot easier for me. So this might look a little bit confusing, but I'll try to make some sense of it. Basically everything like above these tiny muted tracks right here, so all this stuff, is room mics. And really, like, basically the way that they'll mic an orchestra is they'll put up like a big Decatree with like a left, center, right. They'll put some like outriggers in the front, right, left, and then rear, right, left. They'll put some surround mics up, and those just sort of capture the room, again, that like aggregate result of the orchestra, and that is 99.9% of the sound that you pay for. That is really the thing. Like, if I just solo just these room mics, and all that I have on here is a little bit of, I think there's a Focusrite channel strip on each of these with, I'm pushing up the highs just a touch, a little bit of gain in the compression, and like that's it basically. So not a lot. Again, I don't want to like totally mix it, but I just a little bit of something. And then I'm sending to my orchestral hall reverb, which is Quantum Leap Spaces. It's just a full orchestral hall, 3.5 second convolution verb. But other than that, I mean, it's just raw. And if I just play these are just the room mics. I mean, listen to this. I mean, that's the thing. And so it took me a while to realize that when I started recording orchestra. I was using close mics way too often, and they just don't, I don't know, they just don't have that sound. I mean, for funsies, we can unmute these, and I can kind of show you what all these just close mics sound like. Let me pull all these. Get all these here, these guys, And these guys, this is just the close mics now, and I mean same section. Yeah, so like it sounds good. It definitely doesn't sound bad. But it sounds a lot narrower, a lot less wide, and just less like, I don't know. It sounds worse to me. And then the other thing that I layer in with these rooms are just a couple key things. Like at this beginning, I wasn't getting enough piccolo, so I unmuted the piccolo mic here. And I mean, if I solo this piccolo mic, like spot mics in an orchestra room are also a little funny because they're also basically just room mics because it's impossible to get separation. I mean, this is a piccolo mic, and listen what this sounds like. I mean, the other flute is as loud as the piccolo in that mic. So, you know, it's a little bit silly. But the other thing that I do layer in that does bring some presence and helps a lot is they have these overhead left and right just over the woodwind section. And that brings some presence out of my woodwinds. If I like solo that, you can kind of hear that. See, it sounds almost the same as the piccolo mic. But it just brings some life out of the woodwinds. If I play in that bigger section, you'll hear how much of the orchestra you hear in these, though. But at least, like, you get more woodwinds, so it does bring the woodwinds full in the, like, closer in the mix a little bit. And then same here, I really want more out of my brass, so I actually have the horn. They have a front and rear, left and right. I have those in there all the time, and then my brass overheads as well, and those kind of sound like this. You know, so that brings some life, especially like with the melody here at the end. You know, just brings some presence in. And so basically the way that I think about these recordings, it's really overwhelming because it's like 1,000 million mics. But basically you have your rooms, and that's like 90%, 99% of your sound. And then just where you need little things. Sometimes it's more complicated than this. In this one, it was literally just one spot mic at one spot. And then these overheads over the individual sections just to bring them forward a little bit in the mix. And yeah, that's basically how I built the sound. I'm not doing anything else really clever. The only other kind of clever thing I'm doing is you can see the automation here. I have a send to what I call like an air reverb, which I think is just Roam or however you say it. It's this one, which is like kind of my secret sauce reverb. I'm pretty sure it's free, or at least it was free when I got it. And this really like, this is just that super sparkly long decay reverb. And I use that in the beginning. It's way too much to do in like the big sections. But in this beginning section, if I just solo the orchestra, that's what gives it this like really like airy, sparkly kind of sound. Hear that decay? And this is that string harmonics and flute and piccolo doubling texture that I was so excited about in the earlier parts of this series. But yeah, it just had, you know, it gave me a little bit of something. But actually, when I got it, I didn't have these synth parts in, and I just felt like I wanted a little bit more body. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about how I kind of incorporate the orchestra with the samples. And the biggest thing is like just finding the right sort of sounds that don't take away from the live orchestra, because the live orchestra is definitely the focus, but bring in just some extra colors that are kind of nice. And so that kind of part, I basically took this and doubled it on these synths, and they sound like this. So as you can hear, like a lot more MIDI, not MIDI as in MIDI, but MIDI as in like MIDY, like lots of mids in the sound, which is sort of what's missing from the orchestra part here, which is all like airy high. And so when you put those two things together, you get a really nice kind of full frequency picture. In a way that just felt really cool to me. The other thing going on, and this has been going on the whole time I've been showing this, but I made this pad, and this is sort of like what makes this score work, in my opinion, at least narratively, is this sort of ominous pad behind the entire thing that's sort of out of key, and that sounds like this. And I actually made this pad out of a sound that sounds nothing like that. That sort of makes sense in the universe of the short film. But I made it with this thing called Scraper, which basically you just drop an audio file in here, and you can just make like the craziest mangled pads. And I use that all over. And like without, I'll play this section with or without it, and you can just hear how different it is. This is without. And this is with. Just like so much more discordant. And it just, the way that the kind of consonant harmonies of the music clash against that pad just makes for something really interesting that I got really excited about. I also did incorporate some more natural sounding instruments though. Like I have some timpani and gongs and stuff that they sound like this. Yeah, and the key to this is just like also put them in ideally like the same kind of hall reverb, which I sent them to the same hall. Putting the orchestra back in. See, they kind of resonate the same way. So yeah, so that's really like kind of all that's going on in terms of just getting the percussion to blend with the live orchestra. It's just using the right kind of samples, ideally samples that sound pretty live. I think for most of the stuff I'm using east-west, and then putting them in the same hall. It is separated out because I have percussion on a separate stem, but it's literally the same exact setting in the same room as the orchestra, just sent to its own auxiliary track. And that just helps it blends because it has sort of the same character in the room. Okay, so then as we move on, this was that crazy kind of gliss thing. This is what it sounds like with just the orchestra. Which is just like nasty. It's freaking awesome. I love it. And I layered some stuff with that here, like I have this reverse sound. Just give some body. I have this big downer thing. I have a timpani roll. You know, and that just all helps bring it. I think I did more. Yeah, like I had this thing, but I ended up not liking it. It just, I don't know, felt like too much, so I muted it. And then, yeah, moving on to this next section. This is pretty easy, you know, just simple, like, sustained flautando strings. With that solo flute. And, like, that would normally be a spot. I might use a spot mic, but the flute, I mean, in the rooms, it just sounds great. I don't need to. I mean, it's crazy. Like, all we're listening to right now, basically, are room mics, and it sounds like a mix. It's really, really remarkable. You know, that comes down to Budapest doing such an amazing job recording the orchestra playing it really well, but then also, like, just kind of a good knowledge of orchestration and what works in the room, because being concerned about things like blend and stuff matters a lot more when you are recording the entire orchestra together rather than recording the sections separately. So I think about that a lot when I'm writing, and then also when I'm orchestrating. So yeah, that goes through. Here's that really nice section with the chords, just with the orchestra. Really like that. I think if I had more time, one thing I might have asked for was for the violins to go down a little bit there. They're a little loud, and I didn't get the best tuning on those chords from the horns, but it works anyway. It's so human, it doesn't matter. This is what just the brass overheads sound like with this, or the horns, I should say. And then with those woodwinds. But then you put in the full rooms and it's just so much bigger. You have those double basses in there too. Yeah. And then this is a really pretty section. And if you can see here, I automated up that air reverb again to give it more tail as it fades out. See? Guides us in. And we have this big build. And this is that big climactic section at the end. And here's what it sounds like with just the orchestra. And it's fun. This is a fun thing to solo, is listen to the woodwinds just ripping. It's like you don't hear it in context, but it adds like movement and energy that I think does a lot. It's like literally chaos. But in context, it just, I don't know, it just makes it sound like crazy and big and epic. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I have some percussion going on here too. And then just like this massive kind of trailer hit at the end. Which really like kind of resolves the chord, because if you listen to the orchestra doesn't land there. They leave it there, and then the trailer thing lands it. So together it kind of all works. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I incorporated it. I mean, it really is incredibly simple. It's almost just the orchestra, but just with a few key things. It just helps, make it a little bit larger than life. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. Just to give you an idea of sort of like what my mixers do, is all kind of A-B my mix with the mixers mix, and you can sort of hear the difference between them. But yeah, just to give you an idea, we'll just play this one section and you can kind of hear, what maybe they're doing differently than what I do. Again, it is really subtle, but it just helps things get to that next level that just makes everything a little bit better. So let's check it out. Yeah, so like if you're listening on phone speakers or something, that's going to be really hard to tell. But to my ears, the biggest difference is theirs just has a lot less buildup in the low mids, a lot more air, and Life up top, it's a little bit wider, a little bit deeper, and there's just less of sort of the problems. I mean, it really helps that we recorded live orchestra, because that in and of itself actually gets rid of a lot of those problems compared to the samples, where like the low mid buildup I think is a bigger problem. So it's a little bit less drastic than it normally is, but yeah, that's basically how that works, and the result that we had with the live orchestra in Cubase. Anyway, thank you for embarking on this insane 3-video journey with me. If you made it through all 3 videos, you are literally incredible. Like I said in the first one, I'm very long-winded, but I really care about this stuff, and I really care about the detail, and I hope that the detail is valuable to you. If it is, please let me know in the comments. If you think I need to ramble less and find a way to make things a little bit more concise, you can let me know that in the comments as well. But either way, I'd love if you subscribe to the channel. I'm really passionate about putting out content like this, where I document things that I am working on as a real freelance film composer, and just try to show you pull back the curtain a little bit and pull away some of the mystery of some of these things, and just give you really valuable insight into how to do this sort of thing, and hopefully inspire and excite you. This YouTube channel has just been such a fun way for me to do that. And I actually have a Discord community as well that you could join, where I offer help and insight, and it's an amazing community of composers and people trying to figure all this stuff out, and it's just a really great place for us all to be. So I put a link in the description of this video below. But yeah, either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.